What's the most baddest thing you've accidentally said in the heat of the moment? Around the time I was 12, I was at a family party with my dad and aunts/uncles. My dad told me that one of my uncles owned several bars. My response? Oh, it's good that he got into a business that he knows something about. I had no idea what I really was saying. I thought I was giving him a compliment. I did something similar around the same age. My parents were meeting up with my mom's siblings to go paint my grandparents' house. That included my Uncle Dave, who was known to everyone to be a pretty heavy drinker. My mom got a water jug we owned out of the cupboard, probably to put water in for everyone while working, and I looked at it and said, "Oh, is that for Dave's beer?" This one had a little setup, but I think it's funny enough to share. At a family vacation, my grandmother was giving me grief for not remembering her birthday. I've never been good with birthdays. After telling me it was the port to her iPhone, she wanted me to take a picture with it, which is why I needed the port. While she was distracted, I opened up the settings, changed her port to my birthdate, and then set her phone down. Cue 15 minutes later, she's trying to get into her phone and it's not working. Suspecting mischief, she grumpily asks me if I've changed the port to her phone in front of our entire family. I admit that I did. "Well, what is it?" she asked impatiently. "It's my birthday." She sat there in stunned silence for about 15 seconds, not being able to remember my birthday, before our family exploded laughing. Was a good time. Biggest reverse card ever mayo. We had a overly dramatic neighbor who always claimed she was sick and dying. My mom came to see my kids in the middle of battling stage 4 lung cancer. The neighbor pulled her. "Hi Rita, so glad to see you. Did Jason tell you that I'm dying?" My mom looked right at her, smiled and said, "Me too, dear, but not today." Never more proud of her. My cousin had cancer. He's doing okay now, but someone outside a shop was raising money and said, "Kids with cancer." My auntie replied, "No thanks, I've already got one." It went down in family history. About 25 years ago, I was in grade 9 and my parents bought me a pair of Air Maximum. I'm a female, but I had picked a pair of Air Maximum that were supposed to be for males because I preferred the color of the shoes. I was super pumped to get those shoes. We didn't have lots of money, and it was a pretty extravagant purchase. Anyway, I was at our local shopping center and I ran into a group of guys I went to high school with. They were a real bunch of assholes that thrived on dumping on other people. One of the guys had on the same pair of shoes and said to me, "Do you know you're wearing men's shoes?" To which I quickly replied, "Then why the duck are you wearing them?" The other guys pissed themselves laughing and it still stands out in my mind after all these years. Edit. Wow. Thanks for awards. Man, that was ice cold. I bet his friends still bring that one up. If I was best man at the guy's wedding, I'd probably even sneak a reference into the speech. I was eating McDonald's with a few friends and I started choking. The only thing I managed to say in the whole ordeal was, "I'm McChockin'." Ducking gold, how'd he die? I dunno. He choked to death while his friends pissed themselves laughing so damn hard. This was back in my junior year of college. At the beginning of the semester I was introducing myself to my very intimidating biochemistry professor. Guy was a genius, but also a harder. Students were all terrified to ask him questions because he was known for grilling people, and if they hadn't made enough effort beforehand he'd send them out of his office to learn on their own. As I walked into his office he was sorting through some boxes and made a really sarcastic comment regarding stuffing me in the box and shipping it off somewhere. He looked up for my response and I just blurted out without thinking I wouldn't mind going somewhere nice. Dude laughed so hard it actually startled me a little. We got along pretty well for the remainder of the semester, so it all worked out really well. It's amazing what a little laughter can do to ease tension. He needed that. There's no way you're this much of an a-hole naturally. You must go home and practice. I said this to a coworker who was throwing a fit and bullying a quieter coworker because he was pissed off. He had a habit of just being a giant douche anytime things didn't go his way. This comment pissed him off so much he just stormed into his office and stayed there the rest of the day. Win for the rest of us. He was in there practicing some more. At work, when in a somewhat heated discussion of why things kept going wrong at a small company, upper management said something to the effect, "Why does this keep happening? It's idiot proof," and I replied, "We need to stop hiring new idiots to test, if that's true, edit." So the replies seem split about 50/50 understanding what I meant. I'd like to address a couple replies instead of individually. The context was, please stop trying to find people to actually test, if it's idiot proof. Please hire someone who is not a bigger idiot than the previous hire that was let go for being an idiot. First, I work in a very small company and all of us are close enough outside of work that this wouldn't get me fired or reprimanded or anything. Second, my point was that we should hire smarter people in instead of any Joe that applied, and then the procedure would be idiot proof. We just needed a slightly smarter idiot. Thirdly, the Douglas Adams quote is what I had in mind when I said it, but I couldn't remember at the time where I had heard it from. Thanks to those that reminded me. Totally cool insult. I feel the satisfaction, although I wasn't there and I don't know you or the whole context. At work at a company meeting, someone was presenting something cool they volunteered to work on and finished. They then explained things they thought they could do better in a self-deprecating way, and a bunch of other people started railing into his work with petty criticism. It was definitely good work, though, and a thought just hit me, so I blurted it out. "Sometimes done is the best feature." A bunch of people laughed, and then the criticism stopped. People gave him kudos and we moved on. Not really badder, but I was surprised this thought somehow came out fully formed, like it was some phrase I've been saying for decades. I guess I was just realizing how many people don't finish anything they start. So done suddenly seemed like a pretty damn good feature. Give the man some credit for finishing the damn thing. This is actually really inspirational. I'm a perfectionist and often hate stuff I work on so much I abandon it. I'm going to try and internalize this message. I was the lawyer in this criminal case arising out the Standing Rock events. That morning, some Lakota people had given us this traditional blessing to wish us well for the trial, and there were 5 to 7 activists sitting in the courtroom to watch and support us. It happened that there was a certain digital document that I needed before the jury got back from a break, and we didn't know just when the break would be over. I remember turning to the supporters holding up a thumb drive and telling them exactly what I needed from the office across the street and how to get it. I held out the thumb drive and with all the intensity of an ancient general sending his troops into battle said, "Fastest runner, go now." This tiny little young woman grabbed the thumb drive and whole day. She got back before the jury returned. Good for you. How'd the trial go? When I was a broke college student, a wealthy older lawyer hid my car. No damage to his, but mine was crumpled, and I spent all of my no money at the time keeping it on the road. I was going literally 7 miles per hour in a parking lot, and he was entirely at fault. We exchanged insurance info, and I had to get a rental car until mine was fixed. He dodged the insurance calls for about 2 weeks, forcing me to pay out of pocket for the rental, about $600, which I definitely didn't have. I knew this guy was an a-hole snooty lawyer. My dad is a court attorney, and while I have never used this flex, I finally had to ask my dad to call him and talk some lawyer at him. 15 minutes later I get a call and insurance will go forward. Fast forward like 8 years, I'm bartending at a swanky lounge where a chamber of commerce event is going on. Just for local business people to rub elbows and network. This lawyer douche is really feeling himself and charming the room. He orders a glass of wine from me and then stops and says, "Hey, miss, do I know you?" So I came back loudly with, "Well, not really, but you hid my car in a parking lot a few years ago when I was a broke college student and stuck me with the bill. Do you wanna open a tab for the wine or close out now?" He did not open a tab. Edit, you guys seem to like this one, so I have a bonus for you. Back somewhere around 2005 I went to see a band play, and 30 Seconds to Mars was opening for them. Jared Leto was in that band, and at the time Lindsay Lohan was dating him. I live not far from where she grew up, and just a few days before a friend told me that Lines acted like an enormously entitled bitch towards her a few days ago when they were walking their dogs, something about refusing autographs that no one asked for. We got right up to the front during their set. OMG, they were so bad, so we could be in place for the next band. Right behind the barrier was Lindsay watching the set. I motioned her over and asked her to take a photo. She starts yelling like OMG, I'm just normal person trying to watch my BF, leave me alone. Exactly the reaction I was hoping for. I put on my best innocent confused face and said I just wanted a pic with my boyfriend since we made it to the front row. And then said I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were someone famous or something. She went backstage after that. Honestly had never felt so cool. Edit Tooch's gold. Gotta learn what that means now. Can't wait to tell the boss at that job that my bitchy attitude in fact will eventually earn me something. This might be my favorite in the thread, honestly. My parents are pretty well off, but I always worked my way through school. One summer I visited my parents for the summer, and they brought me out to dinner with their super rich friends who were cooing over me and wanting to set me up with their son. The next day the same people didn't recognize me because I was working for the caterer at the event they attended, and wait staff were invisible to them. Like, I made eye contact and they weren't pretending not to notice me, they just didn't recognize me. I would have loved to have an opportunity to shut them down. IDK about badder, but years ago I worked at a Hard Rock cafe, and we often had pre-shift server meetings outdoors on a patio, and my wild boss was droning on about us selling more overpriced plastic cups. I was staring off at the spinning globe on top of the building that says save the planet on it. I interrupted my boss by blurting out, if Hard Rock is trying to save the planet, why do we waste so much paper? Which was really directed at my managers, who had a hard on for printing out stupid memos. They somehow didn't realize it was about them specifically and parred the comment up the food chain, which ended up resulting in the entire company changing their payroll system to paperless globally. As a reward I was given a pin shaped like a light bulb that said bright idea on it. Thanks I guess. Save the company millions of dollars. Get a ducking badge. Duck corporate culture. Edit. I wonder how much money the guys in corporate got in bonuses when they put your idea into place. Edit. Lots of butt threats out there lol. Funny how even though corporate would make more than 10 times what this guy does, none of them actually thought of it, especially when it's their job. I was crazy about this dude. He was intelligent, hot, funny, and a bit older. After a few weeks of dating he said he wasn't ready for a commitment. I told him to come pick up his book from my place and not to reach out again as it hurt too much. I was that into him. So he comes to my apartment. I go to hand him the book and begin to shut the door. He puts his foot in the way to stop it and says I don't know what to do. I'm not ready, but I can't stop thinking about you. Moving my hand off the door, I hand him the book anyways and said then pick me up at 7. Anyways now we're married. Edit. Holy duck, I did not expect this to blow up. Thanks for all of the awards. Hub's response. That's a lot of upvotes. This is cute. Go wait with mommy, daddy might be going back to jail again. Guy pushed my 5-year-old daughter at the fish store and she started crying when he heard me say that he ran out of the store. I've never been to jail before. Edit. Grandma. Who would push a 5-year-old girl? Do you also look intimidating? That line would never work coming from me. I looked like the treasurer of a Mumford & Sons fan club. I worked at a bookstore and a customer asked me how often do the periodicals come out. I deadpanned periodically, and he asked to speak to my manager. Worth it. I used to work in a bookstore. Smarter answers to dumb questions were the best. Customer, where is your non-fiction section? Me, what topic are you looking for? We have lots of non-fiction. Customer, just your regular non-fiction. Me, biographies, history, computers, gardening. Customer, just regular non-fiction. Me, see that sign over there that says fiction? The entire rest of the store. I had amazing job security. I had a surgery, and when I woke up, the nurse was really cute, so I started flirting with her, with no success. I had a second surgery, and when I woke up, it was the same cute nurse. My first words to her were, how many surgeries do I have to have before I get your phone number? We've been married 8 years now. This is almost exactly how my dad found and married his third Lisa. I think he may have lifted his hospital gown as well. I was accused of being passive aggressive. I replied which part sounded passive? I don't ever want to come across as passive. My take on this is I'm aggressive. I already posted here, but I just thought of another story. There was this one extremely attractive girl in my COMM 101 class in college. One day, for a project where we interviewed other students, I was partnered with her. We ended up not finishing our questions in class, so I asked her if I could meet her somewhere to finish interviewing her. She said yes. Fast forward to the next day, I meet her after her dance group finishes rehearsal. I knock through the last few questions, and the final one which I ask is, what do you perceive the future to hold? She replies, I don't even know what I'm having for dinner tonight. I have no idea what the future holds. So I say, well, if you don't know what you're having for dinner, do you want to have dinner with me? She laughed, said yes, and though we only hooked up that night, I still look back on that day as one of the best dating stories I've had yet. Finally one that doesn't end with we've now been married for 15 years. A long time ago I was walking down a side street in a medium-sized town with my girlfriend. A car was parked ahead, with the front of the car facing us as we approached. I could see two kids, maybe in their late teens, and instantly could tell they were likely going say something as my GF was rather attractive. As soon as we come up next to them, I hear, hey baby, ditch the zero, and come hang with a hero. I could feel my blood boil, but I kept my cool, and calmly said, sorry buddy, I'm not gay. And don't call my girlfriend a zero. The dude's friend started laughing at him, and my girlfriend made a sarcastic crying face, then we both started to laugh. Hey baby, ditch zero and come hang with a hero has to be the most 80s or 90s catcall possible. At a party a few years back, someone stole my friend's purse. Her boyfriend found the guys who took it and got it back for her, but he was still in an angry drunken rage and was continuing to escalate the situation when he was well outnumbered. My friend finds me and says, I'm afraid boyfriend is about to get into a fight. I need your help. Stop him, please. I stand up and I tell her, I can't promise you I can stop him from fighting, but I can promise you I won't let him lose. Before walking off to find him. Ultimately, no fight actually broke out, and I didn't realize that I had basically said a cheesy one-liner until after the fact, when my friend told me how intense that line was. I didn't mean for it to sound so dramatic. I just wanted to let her know I won't let him get his ass kicked. I didn't mean to make it sound like I was about to demolish 3 guys by myself like I'm some sort of action hero. I just imagined you taking off your sunglasses after saying that line and dramatic music starting. The first day camping at a 2016 music festival, I headed off with a 4-gallon jug to get water. A girl who was with our group, who had never met before, asked if I needed help. I responded, no, but I'd sure love some company. We're getting married this fall. Congratulations. In a class at university, each student had to give a presentation about a scene, take paper and answer questions about it. We were told to ask the speaker questions, because otherwise the professor would, and his questions would obviously be harder. That professor was really brutal in his critiques of the presentations, but also fair and accurate. In any case, I asked a question after every single presentation, but when my turn came no student wanted to ask anything, so the professor asked me if I wanted to ask myself a question. Without even thinking about it, say, how come your presentation was so extremely excellent? I was mentally preparing to be chewed out. Instead, the professor needed a minute to stop laughing and then gave me the best grade possible. Edit. Yay. First I got the expensive kind of internet points. Thank you STRANGER. When I was in grad school, we strategically planted questions with each other that we knew we could answer. The audience got full participation points and the presenter looked like they had done comprehensive research. I worked at Target back in college in a stocking job where we had to be there at like 4 to 5 am to unload trucks. One morning I overslept a bit and walked to the unpacking line about 10 minutes late, eating a breakfast bar. The boss stormed over and started loudly berating me in front of everyone for being late. As he was going on, I was listening and taking bites of the bar without much expression, mainly because I was so damn tired. It finally bothered him that I was disrespectfully chewing during the yelling, and he stopped mid-sentence, held out his hand, and said, "Give me that damn thing." It just happened that I only had one bite left, So I took it, handed him the wrapper, and said thanks with a mouthful of food. He paused and started laughing at the ridiculous response to his bitching. We were buddies after that. This one made me laugh so hard when I played it in my head. I'm late to the party, but oh well. I work in waste management. I'm also a rather small person, like, they don't make clothes at Old Navy in my size small. I was wheeling a stack of drums out to our loading dock, navigating pretty much purely on instinct, since I couldn't see over or around them. Lo and behold, there's someone there chatting with the shipping people. I run straight into him. I'm surrounded by everyone in shipping, some fairly big dudes, and I feel amazingly unburied. I leaned around the drums to look at the guy I hit, and without even thinking, said, "The duck you want me to do, see through him." Everyone burst out laughing, and the guy even opened the door to the dock for me. Every time I see him now he pretends to duck. Edit, I'm not going to grandstand about getting silver, but would just like to say it's my first one and it's a lot more exciting than I thought it would be, to be honest. You've earned the respect of your co-workers for life. Got to work one morning. My chosen football team had thrashed my boss's chosen team. I gave him a load of chiz for it. Humorously of course, my boss is great. He gave me some chiz back and told me to do a stock take on all items we have beginning with the letter C. I pointed at him and said, 1. Luckily, he took it the correct way and laughed a lot. It took me way too long to figure out that you were calling him a nunt. Well done. A coworker was struggling with a frustrating piece of equipment, and I asked her why she didn't just do insert easy fix instead. She growled, "I don't know. I just really love making things harder." Then why are you a lesbian? Side note. Yes, she's a lesbian, and she almost fell on the floor, she was laughing so hard. She repeated the joke to everyone else the rest of the day. Edit. First of all, thank you for all the upvotes, and thank you for the gold, kind stranger. I'm glad I got to share one of my best one-liners I ever said. I also want to say that of course I knew my audience, and knew she wouldn't get offended, or try to get me fired. I didn't mean it as anything other than a funny joke. I was once giving directions to a gay friend of mine. I said something like, make a left, then go straight. He said, it's a little late for that. I actually said nothing. I was on my motorcycle in traffic, on a wet overpad with short jersey walls. Guy behind me was driving a bit too fast and slammed on his brakes, sliding into me, but no damage as he was going slow enough to touch and push me about 5 feet before finally coming to a stop. The angle had me going straight forward, so I did not fall. Had it been much faster I would have been thrown over the edge to my death. So obviously I was not happy. I turned off the engine, got off the bike and slowly walked over to the driver that hit me. It's only a few feet, and when he saw me coming to him, he furiously started raising his manual window. So I could just see him struggling to pump the winder. When I got there I just knocked on his window, pointed at him, and turned around and walked away. He looked terrified. I didn't think about it until later. A guy you just hit in a car wearing a black helmet, with shaded visor, black heavy thick jacket, black heavy riding pants, road crafter jacket and pants, black thick and metal studded gloves, and black leather boots knocks on your window and points at you for being a supreme dumber. I had no idea, I just wanted to talk to him. Be a bit angry, but tell him I was okay, then take a secretary to verify my bike was okay as well. That'll teach them. In a discussion with my parents in which they were clearly wrong and missing the point, they began yelling because they really hadn't arguments and started talking about the respect I owe them as their son, saying that I was disrespectful for contradicting their position. I just answered something like, from where would I learn respect if I haven't seen you guys respecting me or anyone? And they went completely silent. My brother had something similar. My mom was giving him chiz about him arguing with his GF all the time. She said that isn't how she raises him. Him hating your significant other is exactly how you raised me. Edit. Many upvotes and thanks for the narwhal. Long story short, my friend would share my sexcapades with other people, which I would rather he didn't. Got fed up and ended up blurting out, just because you don't have your own stories to share, doesn't mean you have to share mine. This one's my favorite. Me and my girlfriend at the time were having a discussion about her going back to school. She kept putting it off every semester, and one day she got angry at me trying to get her to actually go back, not just talk about it, and she yelled Rome wasn't built in a day. And I responded, yeah, but it was built. And a decade later I still think of that. Edit. She did end up going back to school. Got her masters even. She's married now with twins. Just a real a-hole. Haha, so awesome, and so close to the full quote Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour. At university, we have to present our senior projects in front of the whole department. Stage fright sucks and everyone else had a more interesting project, in my opinion. The badder moment was that my name was misprinted on the schedule, and I got welcomed to the stage under the wrong name. The first thing I did was point to my real name on my presentation and say that's how my real name is spelled. It's just pronounced weird. A bunch of people laughed, and I got commended by a few people for adding humor to the driest 3 hours of the year. You see, it's spelled Raymond Luxury Yacht, but it's pronounced Throat Warbler Mangrove. Respect should be earned, not given. To some old lady at an extended family gathering. She was saying some mean stuff about the homeless where she lived, and I told her how inconsiderate she was. Then she told me to respect her, and not rebut her. In the famous words of Ali Grestecp. I was the nerdy, 5 foot tall shy girl, and constantly got paired with struggling / misbehaving kids to help them. On this occasion, it was 2 popular guys in English class. One was your typical 2000s comic book jock, the other was a clown who just didn't know when to stop. Together, they unanimously agreed to do chisel, making fun of our climates, while I made the world's ugliest word cloud. I failed art cloud y'all, so that's no joke. I guess I had an epiphany, because for the first time in my 15 years of life, I decided, duck this chiz, and went to tell the teacher they're being lazy rickheads and I'd rather just do it solo. It took a hot minute before Jackester realized I'd even left, and when he pointed it out, the jock stood up looking ready to hulk out of his laureators. And the jock said, what are you tattling on us for? It's not like we've done anything. And I replied, yeah, that's kind of the point. And just walked out of the dead silent clap. Because I was so used to being bullied I fully expected him to yeet a chair at me. But apparently I just looked like a badder, which is accidental street cred my nerdia was 100% eager to roll with. Constantly got paired with struggling / misbehaving kids to help them. This is some ducking bullshit. Duck me, I'm going to be late, after waking up from a concussion that left blood still dripping down my head an hour after, in which period I went and proceeded to sit a history final exam. 'Tis but a scratch. As someone with a suicidal history and multiple attempts, I was a bouncer at the time and my response to I'll ducking kill you was you can't kill me, I can't even kill me, trust me I've tried. Bruce Banner in the comments here. My dad has the absolute worst habit of speaking his mind, uses it as a huge excuse for just being an aunt really. He knows his kids have been sexually assaulted / raped, but never ever would stoop so low as to take the piss out of us for it, or blame us or anything. So I guess he's got that going for him, but doesn't excuse him for comments he makes about other people. There was a news report about a woman who got raped, and go into a discussion about how wearing types of clothes can be asking for it, so in that moment I come out with so me wearing my nightgown ready for bed, when I was 5 years old was asking for it. He soon shut up. My most sincerest of sympathies, I wish you the best and a happy life. One time I popped the blood vessels in my eye and had blood dripping down my face and some kid says hey man you're bleeding, to which I responded chiz, cold fooled me. Then I ducked it up by touching my face and seeing the blood and immediately going chiz guess you were right. How could that happen? Partly accidental. Was doing a university project, had to do a large presentation in front of maybe 50 to 60 other students about a possible business of manufacturing an education toy for kids. It was a bit of a train wreck, as no one else in the group had rehearsed or even read the script. As with all presentations they asked for questions at the end, and I stepped up to answer questions. There was one guy at the back that always asked awkward questions, like what if someone were to injure themselves and sue you, or have you factored in matching employees' pensions? It was meant to be a fun project for first year students. They weren't expecting tons of detail. When it came to asking questions, I volunteered to answer them. The guy opened right away asking awkward questions, but he misjudged how anal I'm with details. I asked the lecturer hosting the session if I could load up my spreadsheet. He allowed it. That's when the guy realized he had asked the wrong guy. I had made an automatic spreadsheet that would work out how many people were needed, how many machines, what hours people could work, rolling production over 24 hours, and overlapping shifts to ensure it all worked at maximum efficiency. Add to that, it worked out costs, complying to the law exactly, including pension contributions, tax amounts, holidays, time off work due to illness etc., insurance, rent and more. When it came to asking his group questions, I asked him every single thing he had overlooked legally, like time off for work, pay increases etc. On the way out, the other groups gave me a smile as it had shut him right up. Love it. I had a presentation in front of the class and my topic was drug use. At the end, a lady asks what's the most used drug, and my reply without thinking, weed. Duh. Not me, my daughter. This boy at school called her retarded. Her response? No, I'm autistic. I don't know what your ducking excuse is. She was in 6th grade. I was pretty shocked when I got that phone call. She usually doesn't say things to people. Then, of course, you asked what happened to the other boy. I'll never forget the moment a family walked into the local pub I was working at while I was working. This big king of the grill, bald alpha patriarch dad type, and his wife and kids came through. I said, welcome, where would you like to sit? And he snapped back, well, a table would be nice. And without missing a beat at all, I replied, actually we usually sit on the chairs here. I'll never forget the satisfaction of that moment or the look on his face. Haha. You are the alpha dad now. At work, project management undercut and mismanaged a project so badly, they pushed getting minimum viable product out with the goal to roll out improvements later. Product released, they all patted themselves on the back and moved on. Then that minimum viable product broke. In a meeting we had with our directors about how it's so broken and the cost to fix it etc. No cost too big and limited manpower etc. I asked how come we couldn't afford to do it right, but we can afford to do it twice? They pushed getting minimum viable product out with the goal to roll out improvements later. Do you work for Bethesda? In my country there was a song, are you horny or do you want a cookie? A guy used this as a pickup line. My answer, I was horny, but after your face, give me the cookie. Are you Dutch, or is this terrible song also known in other parts of the world? P. When I was 12, my older sister had a boy over for Thanksgiving dinner. She dated lots of douches, but this guy took the cake. Big, brash, annoying righead who was rude to her and basically everyone. As we sat down for dinner, before we were about to say what we were thankful for, he says inaudible more and grunts how looks like him seated at the head of the table. Must be important with a huge cheese-eating grin. Without pausing, I gesture to my dad seated opposite him and said, actually my dad is at the head of the table. You're the asshole. My mom scolded me for swearing at the table, but years later told me her and my dad thought it was hilarious. Mayo, this one's my favorite. Not badder. And to be honest, their comeback was better. However, the exchange tickled me. So I'm in a university sociology lecture. I'm decidedly working class, from the black country, generally a more working class area of the West Midlands, England, and in the lecture as part of my social work degree. Two girls behind are completing a sociology degree, have a much posher southern accent, and clearly a bit better off than me. Anyway, the lecture's about clap. Pronounced CL by myself and CLS by them. Annoyed by their constant chatting, I turn round and say there's no duck in our in clap. Without missing a beat, one of the girls shoot back, yes, but there is a G in ducking edit. I'm female. They were female. This was well over a decade ago. No cheesy or vulgar chat up lines were involved. Then you better compete in ducking spelling bee. I tripped going upstairs at my university. Several people came over to make sure I was okay. I'm fine, just my shins and my ego bruised. So I was trying to make light of it by joking walking is hard and stairs are tricky at the same time, but I just ended up squawking stairs hard in a girl's face before I ran off. Sigh. I didn't realize the nature of my comment when I wrote it, but in high school, one of my teachers did end of the year anonymous evaluations. Everyone hated him, and I understood why, but I still did well in his class. I wrote, I don't have any critiques about your teaching, but I think you should work on being a better person. Dude, how old were you? That line would have definitely destroyed me if I had been your teacher. A friend of mine was giving me cheers while we were all bowling. Off the cuff I yelled at him, "You're adopted. Your parents don't even like you." He laughed, because, you know, friends. Like 3 hours later it hit me, and I turned around and said, "Holy cheers XX. You are adopted. I completely forgot. I'm so sorry dude." Which he thought made the whole situation even funnier. Edit, a word. Cheers, I've made an exact mistake like this. Except it was more of an insult war and we weren't quite friends. I came out to my friend as a lesbian. She told me that it was unnatural, so I said it's more natural than your tits. We are not friends anymore. Well, clearly your friends are carrot NUNT, and not the sort you're into. I was around 17 or 18, and getting my first filling at the dentist. They pumped me up with nitrous oxide for pain and to help me relax during the procedure. Dentist came back and asked me, "How are you feeling?" All I said was "I don't," and he lost his cheers and cracked up for what seemed like 20 minutes before he could pull himself together. I also started cracking up because of the laughing gas and his laugh was infectious. So we were both just sitting there in the room laughing and all his assistants came by and were very confused lol. I had something similar, though far more disturbing, which has been kind of a theme in my life. I got super drunk when I was probably 25, got in a bar fight, as was my habit, and got knocked out cold, also a bad habit back in those days. Woke up in an emergency room to a cop who said, "It's 4:30 AM, you're in so and so emergency room, you just blew a 29 back, so I have to take you to the detox center now." I stood up from the chair they had me in, and the cop goes, "Hey, wait, are you okay to walk?" And I threw my arm around his shoulder and bellowed out, "Walk? Hell, I'm driven, let's go." He was not amused, and he got a little rough with me, but about half the emergency room staff completely lost it. Also, I eventually quit drinking and fighting, though it took about 10 more years of failures before I hit that point. I worked in cell phone sales for a few years and a woman came in with a fairly new flip phone. This was 2018, we just still sold them. She was complaining cause one of the sides of the screen was dangling off and said she didn't do anything, it just snapped, and demanded a new phone. I told her, "That looks like physical damage and we don't have any coverage for that, since you didn't buy a phone protection warranty." She insisted it wasn't physical damage and the phone just sucks and broke itself. She started freaking out and calling me all kinds of names and swinging her phone in my face, and then the top half of the phone literally snapped off and landed on the counter in front of me. I just looked her in the eyes and said, "Well, that was definitely physical damage." She lost her cheers at my comment, and it was weirdly satisfying. I had a similar situation. A guy came in with a little cheap phone that was absolutely shattered. He was screaming at me that the phone didn't work. We have to be somewhat professional even with abuse being yelled at us. I calmly said, "If looks like the phone has been damaged, which can cause faults in its operating ability." He explained that the phone wouldn't work, so he threw it into the concrete sidewalk. My response was, "Throwing your phone onto concrete can cause physical damage." He was not pleased. Was working in a job, and the head manager from out of state came in for a visit. It was a quiet work day, so everyone is managing to look busy when he rocks around. He asks how our day's going, and I pipe up, "Just trying to look busy." He didn't say much back, and walked out of the room. My peers just looked at me like, "WTF did you just say that for?" Emphasis-pumming and wanting to hide under a rock. Edit, the whole office was made redundant about a year later lol. Haha, I like this. Did anything come of it? I'm a writer, and I do a bit of stand-up comedy. As such, people tend to introduce me to new people as a comedian, writer, etc. So I was outside a bar smoking with a friend of a friend. He then introduced to one of his friends. His friend was dressed like Liam Gallagher from Oasis, and seemed to exude a bit of a cocky, sneery manner. The introduction went thisly: "Friend of friend, Mr. Gallagher, this is Writer of Wrongs, as a comedian." Mr. Gallagher looks me up and down, "Comedian A." Does that mean you think you're funny? Righter of wrongs. No, it means everyone else does. I literally do not know where it came from. I didn't think about the response, it just came out. And it is hands down the greatest thing I've ever said. I do declare. Had an older lady road rage me. Long story short, I pulled into a parallel space in front of the cop shop. And sure ended me going 30. But she wasn't done. She backed out, drove up the street, turned around and then smashed into me head on, screeching the entire time. The officers came out in time to see her smash me a second time. I got out all shaky legged, wide-eyed and scattered. A cop came and helped me get up the curb while another was pulling the woman out of her vehicle. She was screaming about young people being bad drivers, screaming at me being a disrespecting millennial. I replied, "Ma'am, I may be a millennial, but at least I won't be in jail for child endangerment, you ducking musty bag of skin." She didn't realize my 4-year-old was in the car. The cop busted up laughing as she was screeching about my foul language. I went in for the dirty word kill, calling her a slimy cum sock, a cobwebbed old duck ball, whatever I could think of. The cop admonished me, but was still chuckling. I was pretty sure this lady was purple, she was so angry. I went to her court date. She lost her license permanently, already had 10 points, had to do 80 hours of anger management, 120 hours of community service, and was credited for 3 days in jail. She was 84. I feel like she should have gotten the worse punishment than that for intentionally hitting you head on. Isn't that Arnold with a deadly weapon, or attempted murder? Deleted. Ugh. That creep's hitting on that poor waitress. Better stop him, proceeds to hit on waitress. Forensic biology professor brings out a fresh human brain as a surprise to a stunned clap. You have no idea what I had to go through to get this. The skull. The janitor stopped by at the wrong time. Note, among gamers, to farm means to do something repeatedly in order to close in on a set goal. For instance, farming gold would mean doing a certain activity over and over until you've gathered enough gold. I was playing 5v5 League of Legends with 9 friends, and when one of my teammates gave me some flack for not farming enough gold from minions, I responded with "I farm players," and by sheer luck immediately proceeded to kill the entire enemy team on my own, and won the game. The 5 enemy friends joined my team's voice communication channel and 9 people were euphoric and losing their chiz over what just happened, especially when my 4 teammates told the other 5 of my response. I peaked then and there. Badder. After 4 years in an abusive relationship and 1 year of an abusive marriage, I told my ex that I wanted a divorce. He told he that I couldn't divorce him or I'd go to hell. My response was, "Well, I guess I'll see you there." I then kicked him out of my house, for which he had never paid a dime in bills, and told him to call his mom for a plane ticket. Not the most bad story here, but it felt good. Congrats on getting out. I'm a tech nerd, have always been into phones, computers, etc. One of my exes hated this. BC I wasn't giving her my absolute, undivided devotion. One day she complained that I loved my electronics more than I loved her. Without even thinking, I said, "Yeah, they have a mute button." Damn, did she give you the silent treatment after that? We were ordering hats for our graduation, and a guy who was a prick yelled out, "Wow, my head is smaller than average," me from the other side of the room. Not the only head you have smaller than the average. I don't know, a man-sized prick seems decidedly larger than average. I worked as a bartender at what was arguably the busiest bar in Boston circa 2015. On a typical, overwhelmingly busy Saturday, I was working the service bar, and it was absolutely humming as it always was, making and distributing craft cocktails at breakneck speeds for servers, and also taking orders of the raving lunatics demanding to quenched of what seemed an insatiable thirst. It was a blur of ice and juice and madness as I crushed ice and fruit, and squeezed bottles of syrups and juices, and topped drinks with myriad garnishes, and I was in the zone. I was crushing it, achieving god-tier levels of drink making, and while doing so I tried to take a young lady's order and she says, excuse me, you owe my friend a drink," and while I was still busy doing my thing I asked, "Why?" To which she replied, "Because you got my friend wet." Residual splash, another innocent victim of the war on drink tickets, and without skipping a beat I said, Yeah, her and every girl who's ever been in here turned away carrying on about my business, and to this day I've yet to experience that level of overwhelming self-satisfaction in my life. She didn't even respond. She knew she had been owned. My only regret is that nobody witnessed what is quite possibly the crowning achievement of my life. To anyone who feels that this is sad, I wish I could give that feeling so you could understand and feel what I felt, because you are ducking missing out. Duck yes, that's awesome. I worked as a server for a while, and I was always jealous that bartenders have different rules when it comes to customer interaction. I always felt like they had a lot more leeway when it comes to calling people on their chews. I'm a nurse now, and love being able to call people out. Dude asked me if I was normal after saying good morning babe to him, which I replied I never was. We are all sinners. He stayed silent for days. Edit. How'd I fix this hot mess? He won't talk to me lol. Edit 2. He texted me back saying he was busy and he doesn't mind if I wasn't normal. Yay. LMAO. Holy cow. Dying laughing here. I was playing an online game and going up against a bunch of griefers. I had my crew with me, but I was the only one on the mic. My friends were killing everything, and I was calling out the locations from a place of relative safety. One of the griefers got sick of not being able to sneak around, got pretty abusive with me, and finally was like, who the duck are you? I said you can call me God, because I'm the bitch deciding whether you live or die. I was in an acting class in college, and we were doing a scene where a couple was having a big drawn out fight. Multiple pairs went through the scene, and I studied it pretty hard, so I knew all the lines. We are about halfway through our performance when my partner clearly forgets what a line is. And because everyone was doing that scene, they could tell she had forgotten as well. Her next line was supposed to be, well, I'm sorry I asked. I'm not usually a quick thinker on my feet, but I just filled the second or two of awkward silence with I bet you're sorry you asked, huh, and continued on with my lines. Not overly bad a paresse, but the clown professor loved it and all laughed. Probably the only quick-witted thing I've ever done in my life. I had something sort of similar happen when I was in a production of A Christmas Carol. On opening night, we were performing the scene from Christmas Future where Scrooge's former employees are pawning off all his stuff. The pawnbroker went to hand some coins to the girl next to me, but she dropped them. Everyone froze for a split second, and I saw an opportunity. I figured any character who would loot a dead guy's house and sell off his stuff wouldn't have any qualms about pocketing someone else's cash, so I dove for it. The other girl caught on and immediately and went after it too, and we made an improvised bit of fighting over it. Afterward, my costers congratulated me on my quick thinking, and the director liked how it played out so much that he made it a permanent part of the show. It wasn't anything monumental, but it added a couple of laughs in what was otherwise a pretty dark scene. Has to be my proudest acting moment. A mate was really drunk and jokingly hitting on our mate's potted plant during a party. He asked if she came here often. I quipped, bitch, olive here. It was in fact an olive tree. Jesus Christ, how ducking gone. Do you have to be to hit on a plant? What a story. In middle school I had a class simply called Reading Class that was taught by a conservative Christian lady. I was reading Jurassic Park and the teacher asked to see my book. I compiled like a good student. The next day she gave it back and said, you can no longer read this book in this class because they use God's name in vain. I looked at her square in the eye and replied, well Dukas, if dinosaurs were chasing after you? I don't know. Probably be too out of breath for that. But man would I be thinking it. Young male, traveling with a bunch of other males. Border patrol. We were being searched for drug smuggling. Border patrol agent, you know I have the authority to cavity search you? Me, somehow without skipping a beat. Sure you might, but neither of us would enjoy it, and you wouldn't find anything off the hook. No fingers in my butt. When I was 7 some girls were bullying me at school. I just learned the word mutual. One of the bullies said we don't like you, and I said the feeling's mutual, and then walked off. I'm 37 now, and I still remember it. It hurts to be this cool. I was working it for a company when Network Solutions had a massive DNS outage. My manager, GM of the company, smart but not it, asked me what was wrong besides DNS on the host side. My response was DNS acts like a phone book, looking up our web address and directing it to the correct place. The phone book is on fire. First day on the job, my apps caught on fire. The second day it happened again. It was the same apps. They plugged it in after we put it out the first time. My asshole is jealous of what's coming out of your mouth. My uncles were bitching about my dad, so I walked into the conversation and told them it wasn't polite to talk about people behind their backs. My uncle turned to me and said I shouldn't interrupt when the men are speaking, and completely out of character I replied, I don't see any men in here. Boy did I get some cheers that day, but that's how I knew I won that exchange. I'm positively gleeful at all these stories of young folks telling their sexist uncles to STFU. Well, I guess I'm a dad now. Hiya dad now, I'm dad. Dude I worked with had a stutter and was a bit of an asshole. One day he goes, hey Jack Ringler, D, do you think you're going straight to hell because you're gay? And my response was, hey Anthony, D, do you think God gave you a rest stutter so you could think twice about what you say to people? The whole wait station stopped and silence said it. Word. Yo, this is my favorite one, LMAO. Damn. You got a little something stuck in your teeth. I like that in Deadpool, because even though he was being tortured he still was roasting people. You touch that girl one more time and I'll break your legs. I was drunk and didn't even know the people. But no woman is going to get smacked like that without me standing up. Last year I went to meet some friends at the pub. One of them is a doctor that specializes in cardiac problems. He'd brought a couple of his medical students with him, and one of them was banging on about how his girlfriend, who he had been dating for 3 months, hadn't slept with him yet, calling her frigid and generally just being really disrespectful about her. His buddy says, is she religious? He says, no idea. I say, wait a secretary, you've been dating for 3 months and you don't know if she's religious or not? He says, yeah. I say, I think we've figured out why she's not sleeping with you. Dude was speechless and everyone laughed pretty hard at him. Felt pretty good about that. 5th grade, just moved to a new town. I was a scrawny kid getting picked on by a fatter that went to a children's correctional facility. He liked to brag about it because he thought it made him sound hard. We were sitting across from each other during class and he started ducking with me. I leaned over, looked him in the eyes and said, I don't give a duck if you went to children's correctional facility. If you duck with me again I'm going to beat your A. I guess he saw the hatred in my eyes because the dude never ducked with me again. Hatred in my eyes is a whole mood. I bid you good day, sir. I said good day. Working retailer Karen once told me she hoped I die. I was so into work mode that I blankly responded, I mean, we all die. That's not much of a threat. Maybe it was my lack of intimidation or blank stare, but that really shut her up. Maybe you reminded her of her own mortality. Sometimes it can make you stop and wonder if what you are doing is really worth it. Maybe only legal professionals will get this, but I was arguing a motion to dismiss on a simple, typical type of case that we do very often in that field of law. In arguing a motion to dismiss, the only information that matters is what's mentioned in the complaint, the document that begins a lawsuit and basically lays out the case. Opposing counsel started using random facts from the file, all the voluminous background documents we share about the case, in his argument. The judge asked me if it was true. I responded that I don't know, because I haven't even looked at the file on this case before this hearing, since it's a motion to dismiss hearing and all that matters is the words contained within these pages, and I held up the 3-page complaint in the air. Basically I admitted I didn't study the case at all, but it didn't matter, because those facts aren't allowed in a motion to dismiss hearing. It was bold, and I was scared when I said it. I won the hearing. Afterwards, the other lawyer was fuming and approached me to basically convince me that he was right. He wasn't. He accused me of manipulating the judge with the law and logic, and he said the judge seemed like the kind of guy who is whipped by his wife, him a woman. I just kept smiling and thought it was hilarious what a poor loser this guy was. To make it even better, a high-powered attorney who was in the courtroom waiting for his own hearing exited while we were talking and came up to high-five me and compliment my argument. The loser was so crestfallen. I couldn't wipe the smile off my face the whole day. While we were all riled up because of colleagues in other departments being lazy and pretending they didn't understand computers so they wouldn't even have to try learning, I said, you know, when a dumb customer calls us and asks stupid questions, he pays us to be allowed to be dumb. Colleagues here on the other hand have no excuse, or one my colleague said when a colleague sales representative demanded that we give priority to his customer even though he didn't follow the proper procedure. A lack of organization on your end does not constitute an emergency on ours, so please wait for your turn. And also one, not because my words themselves were badder, but because it really reeled the kid in question. So I helped my sensei with teaching in martial arts club, and there was this little 10 years old boy who was new. First training. Very insecure. In the middle of the training, I catch him sobbing. So I ask him what's up. He says, I suck at this. So I stop this other boy of the same age, but with a higher belt, who was just passing by us at that moment, and who happens to be the one I get along with best, and ask him, hey Noah, when you first started, did you suck at this? Noah, realizing why I asked, said yes of course, I was terrible, and carried on. So I turned back to the crying boy and say, see, we all sucked when we started, even me, and that's fine, because you'll learn. He instantly cheered up and has been doing much better since. Noah came back to me afterwards and I said well played and we fist bumped. He's a smart kid. I felt like we really did something badder. I work in healthcare. Occasionally older generation folks for some reason won't talk to women, only men. So at the time I was helping my female coworker with a PT treatment. She was trying to explain why he needed to do some stuff, and all his answers were directed to me, even though she was the one talking. Eventually he says something about me having a father, and how basically he should understand why he's not listening to her as a woman. I replied, it's 2017, I don't have a dad, I was raised by 2 women. You brought him that much closer to a heart attack, LMFAO. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.